What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Too Good for Theaters video. Today, the New England Patriots have officially selected Will Campbell with the 4th overall selection in the 2025 NFL Draft. Let's get right into this breakdown. "I'm going to fight and die" was Will Campbell's response when asked about protecting Drake May. And this is the guy that the Patriots really targeted for several weeks now. Obviously, once Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter were off the board, there really was that second tier of prospects here, and the Patriots figured they need to address an area of need, with that being the offensive line, so they get themselves who's presumed to be the best tackle in this year's draft class. Of course, Will Campbell, 3-year starter at LSU, going up against SEC competition here. And it was an area of need. Obviously, the offensive line over the past 3 seasons, in reality, has been absolutely horrendous, and especially when you just drafted your franchise quarterback, that being Drake May. Outside of the playmakers, really, of course, being Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, there was a little bit of a fall-off. Of course, you could say Ashton Jeanty is probably in that range as well. However, do you really want to select a running back with 4th overall here? And when you have such a need on the offensive line, I think that you had to address it. So the only questions that I would personally have, was there a chance that the Patriots could potentially move back in this draft a couple spots and still selected their guy, Will Campbell, here? But of course, that news really isn't going to come out tonight. And if they feel like they got their guy, then they got their guy. And I think that Will Campbell will certainly be providing above average tackle play, hopefully. Definitely better production than what you've had at the tackle position over these past couple seasons here. And if worse comes to worse, you probably slot him to the inside there. And he's probably going to be a Pro Bowl caliber type guard. However, you really don't want to select a guard with the 4th overall selection here, so you have to hope that, short arms and all, that Will Campbell should be able to translate well to the NFL level at the tackle position. And he's going to be facing more length here, which is a little bit worrisome. However, he has the foot speed and athleticism to compensate for his quote-unquote short arms. And if the Patriots were that concerned with the short arms and felt like they couldn't work around it, then I don't think that he would have been selected 4th overall here. Of course, you have Josh McDaniels, your returning offensive coordinator. You have Doug Marrone, now your offensive line coach. And of course, you have Dante Scarnecchia consoling with the team here. So I have full confidence that if they really thought that this short arm issue would be an absolute catastrophe there at the NFL level, that he would not be selected. And from what was reported, it sounds like the New England Patriots absolutely fell in love with Will Campbell a couple weeks back. And at a position of need, really, there's just no need to try and force anything, try and trade down if there isn't anything available. The only player that really would have been garnering a trade up in that possible scenario would be Ashton Jeanty by any of the teams. And if the Patriots didn't receive any calls, then there's not much you can really do. And I think that Will Campbell is a safe pick here. Understandably, no prospect in this tier is quote-unquote perfect. Of course, we all know that this year's draft at the top is not especially talented compared to last year's draft and other drafts of previous years. But I think that the Patriots just identified their target area of need, and he fit the culture that they wanted to really define here in New England. So hopefully Will Campbell is going to translate well to the NFL, and hopefully you have your left tackle of the future here on a rookie contract protecting Drake May. So taking a look at Will Campbell's college statistics here, in the 2024 campaign, he had an overall offensive grade of 72.2, a run block grade of 69.7, and a pass block grade of 80.6. Of course, all this is according to PFF, and based on some of the other stats like Next Gen and stuff like that, other sites actually had Will Campbell a little higher than PFF did. So that might be why the stats or grades here might be a little lower than some of the other tackles that we've gone over in some previous videos, but it just really depends on where the grading standpoint comes through. However, I wouldn't say that PFF was the most kindest to Will Campbell here, so we'll see what ends up happening here. But he allowed 18 pressures on the season, 11 hurries, 5 QB hits, only 2 sacks given up, and he was penalized 9 times. And I wanted to take a look at some of his key matchups for this season. Against Bama, he had a pass block grade of 79, where he allowed 2 pressures and 2 hurries. Against Texas A&M, and of course that vaunted defensive line, he did struggle in that game. That was probably his worst performance of the season. he had a pass block grade of 51.1, where he allowed 5 pressures and 5 hurries. And then probably his best game of the season. However, it is a little skewed because one of the edge players, I think Princely, and I'm not going to know how to pronounce his name, the Ole Miss edge defender, was actually injured, I believe, on the first couple snaps of this game. But against Ole Miss, he had a pass block grade of 93 and did not allow a stat to go against him. So some pretty big name colleges there, and I would say that overall Will Campbell played pretty well against them. Of course, had a little bit of a shaky game against Texas A&M, but that defensive line, that's a pretty clean rotation that they got. So that's understandable. However, I did want to take a look at his 2023 campaign, where he actually graded out better than his 2024 campaign. He had an overall offensive grade of 82.8, a run block grade of 84.9, and a pass block grade of 77.7. He allowed 17 pressures, 12 hurries, 5 QB hits, did not allow a sack, and was penalized 5 times. But also, you kind of want to take a little bit of a look into that. He was playing under a different quarterback, that being, of course, Jaden Daniels, the scrambling master himself. And, of course, Jaden Daniels had himself an extremely successful rookie year last year. So it was a little bit different from the quarterback he had this season, that being, I'm going to butcher this name, Garrett Newsmere. But, of course, Jaden McDaniels was much more mobile and was able to extend a lot more plays compared to what Garrett was able to do this season. So those grades could impact these numbers here as well. And I think an advantage of having a scrambling quarterback like Drake May is he's going to be able to extend plays. And even when the offensive line struggles at times, Drake May is going to create something out of nothing. So that's greatly going to impact Will Campbell, especially his rookie season. Of course, he's probably going to take some bumps and bruises. Adjusting to the NFL is no slight. But hopefully, playing with a scrambling quarterback like Drake May allows a little bit more leeway here for Will Campbell. And of course, Will Campbell was facing SEC competition throughout his entire career. So hopefully, all the positives that he had in college will be able to translate here to the NFL. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below of what you thought of Will Campbell. This is a massive draft here for the New England Patriots. Of course, the first draft under the variable regime. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the New England Patriots handle this draft class. And of course, Will Campbell kind of being that statement pick, being that first overall pick for Mike Vrabel as a head coach of the New England Patriots. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the selection. And even let me know your thoughts on the rest of this draft. What are you looking forward to? What areas do you think the Patriots need to address? And hopefully, I'll check you all out in the next one.